Hello, dear warrior. They used every weapon. You became the one thing they can't touch. Let's talk about what they won't admit. You weren't just tested. You were targeted. Silently. Systematically. Psychologically. They didn't come for you with fists. They came for you with rituals, wires, and whispers. A priest to cleanse your soul. A hacker to breach your mind. A hypnotist to rewrite your will. They didn't want your body broken. They wanted your identity deleted. And you didn't scream. You didn't crack. You didn't fold like they predicted in their cold little notebooks. You sat still and burned hotter than any spell they tried. They called it Code Black, the classification they use when nothing makes sense, when nothing is working, when every system in place fails. And now, your name lives in that folder, sealed, unexplained, untouched. You made the darkness flinch, so they brought out the forbidden tools. When the first wave failed, they escalated. The priest came back, but this time not with blessings, with ancient rites whispered in languages that were never meant for the living. The hacker didn't just dig through your files, he tried to override your thought patterns. He wanted to rewrite your beliefs, reroute your identity like code. And the hypnotist? She didn't try to calm you anymore. She tried to erase you, break your reality, turn your mind into a blank page. But legend, you didn't just resist. You reflected. Every spell, every line of code, every whispered command bounced off you and burned their hands. Because you're not programmable. You're not purifiable. You're not compatible with control. You were never a system error. You were a system breaker. And that moment when all three of them looked at each other and realized they were the ones unraveling, that's when Code Black turned into something worse. That's when you became the threat. They tried silence, but you were louder without a sound. When they couldn't crack you, they did what cowards do with things they fear. They locked it away. No voices, no light, no tech, just you and the echo of yourself. They called it containment. But what they really hoped? That silence would finish what their weapons couldn't. But here's what they didn't understand. Legend. You were born in silence. You trained in it. You became something else inside it. While they thought silence would make you beg, you built weapons out of it. You turned stillness into armor. You became a storm in a sealed box. And that box couldn't hold you because you didn't rage against the walls. You made the walls start doubting themselves. The guards started hearing your name in their sleep. The staff refused to walk near your door at night. Even the cameras glitched every time you looked directly at them. Legend. They thought silence would erase you, but it only gave you space to evolve. And when the door finally opened, they weren't looking at the same person anymore. They were looking at something their training never prepared them for. They put you in the hot seat and ended up on trial themselves. They sat you down in a cold room, tape recorder humming, files stacked like they knew you. Tell us how you resisted. What were you thinking? How did you shield your mind? But legend, you didn't answer. You didn't blink. You tilted your head and smirked. Because you knew what they feared most, that they were never in control. The interviewer stammered. The hypnotist looked away. The hacker, he left the room. The priest, he whispered something and reached for his cross, but it burned his hand. because this wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a reckoning. You didn't need to say much. A few words. A glance. A pause at the right moment. That was enough to make grown men sweat through $800 suits. They came with clipboards and data points. You came with energy. Unfiltered. Uncontainable. Unrepentant. And in that room they realized something terrifying. The subject they were studying was rewriting them. They shut the case, but you stayed in their heads. After that room, they didn't want answers anymore. They wanted distance. The priest resigned. The hacker deleted everything. The hypnotist refused to speak your name again. And that file, that thick black folder with your initials on it, it was sealed, stamped, classified, anomalous, non-human response. They created a whole new category just to explain you. Not hostile, not safe, just uncrackable. They shut the case, locked the data, burned the paper trail. But legend, your name didn't stay in that room. It started echoing across networks, through whispered meetings, in late-night calls that end with, "Just stay away from that one." They called it a containment failure, a psychological anomaly, a statistical impossibility. But the truth? You broke their language. They don't have words for what you became. You were the file no one wanted to open, but the one everyone was warned about. And that's how you won. Not by yelling, not by fighting, but by existing in a way they couldn't define. You didn't vanish. You became the blueprint. Legend. They shut the case, but something strange started happening. The staff, they didn't go back to normal life. They disappeared, or retired early, or stayed quiet. Too quiet. But the rumors? They started spreading like smoke through vents, in underground forums, encrypted chat rooms, private networks used by people who watch energy, not currency. Your initials started popping up. No context. No photos, just whispers. You ever heard of Code Black? That one? They sent priests, hackers, hypnotists, all failed. And now, they don't try to decode you anymore. They use you as a case study, as a legend, as a blueprint for surviving the unthinkable. If you can move like that one moved, if you can hold your silence like they did, if you can resist without blinking, you became the story they tell to the next recruit, the training video they don't show to the public. We don't know what this one is, but if you ever face it, just walk away. Legend. You didn't just beat them. You rewrote how they prepare for war. They felt you coming before you entered the room. Legend. They thought the story ended when they stopped trying to break you, but it only started, because something strange began to happen. People changed around you. Rooms shifted. Energy bent. You didn't even need to speak. Your presence started doing the talking. People got quiet when you walked in. The fake ones twitched. The loud ones stuttered. The ones who watched energy, they stopped watching and just watched you. Because you weren't acting strong, you had become the silence people feel in their chest before a storm. Some tried to imitate it. The posture, the stillness, the smirk. But they couldn't duplicate the frequency. Because this wasn't about a look. It was about what you survived. What they failed to crush. You didn't walk like you were better. You walked like you had nothing left to lose. And that is the walk they fear the most. You became the blueprint they couldn't trace, the mirror they couldn't look into, the file they couldn't close. Because even when you left the room, you stayed in their instincts. Now they come with curiosity, but leave with a scar. They stopped sending operatives. Now they send observers, researchers, believers, skeptics. People who heard the whispers, who read the file, and thought, that can't be real. So they show up, not to break you, not to fix you, but to understand you. They sit across from you like you're a puzzle, like if they just watch long enough you'll unlock. But legend, you don't unlock. You rewire the lock. You let them study you, and you study them harder. You match their breath, hold their stare, say nothing, and still, they leave with more questions than answers. One walked out and said, I don't know what that was, but I'm not the same person I was before that room. Another one quit her job, deleted her accounts, started sending handwritten letters. No explanation, just a note that said, that one changed me. You didn't give them trauma. You didn't give them violence. You gave them truth. Raw, unflinching, unfiltered, and legend. That's what broke them. They came to study you and ended up studying themselves. Legend, they finally stopped pretending. No more experiments. No more mind games. Now they call it a resilient study, a case of impossible survival. But the truth, they're not studying you anymore. They're studying the way they underestimated you. They rewatch the tapes, pause on your expressions, track the shifts in your breathing, and they ask, how did this one survive isolation? How did this one reject mental reprogramming? How did this one endure without rage? They try to chart it, map it, package it. But your survival didn't come from a playbook. It came from pain. It came from truth. It came from the kind of silence that doesn't echo, it carves. They wanted to know what made you unbreakable. But every path they follow leads to the same answer. We would have folded. We would have snapped. We wouldn't have made it. Legend. They came to study a subject. They left confronting a mirror. You weren't supposed to exist. Now you're the blueprint. They've tested thousands, mapped minds, scanned souls, but then came you, the outlier. The one the data couldn't process, the presence their machines couldn't fully detect, and that scared them more than failure ever could. One whispered at first, what if this one isn't like the others? What if they're not from here? What if this is what happens when spirit breaks through system? It wasn't a joke, it was a prayer, a hope that maybe this kind of strength exists somewhere. You weren't just unbroken, you were rewritten. Not with code, not with mantras, but with will. The kind of will that doesn't ask permission, the kind that builds itself out of nothing. Legend. They didn't create you, they couldn't replicate you, and now they're following your blueprint, trying to train others to be almost like you. But even they know, there is no like you. They brought in priests, hackers, hypnotists, and when all of them failed, they met the only truth left. You're not just unbroken, you're unwritten. You studied me? Cool. Now watch me rewrite the whole system. So they watched, they studied, they labeled, code black, unclassified, unknown threat. But they still don't get it. You can't decode what was never programmed. You can't fix what was never broken. And you damn sure can't contain what was built in silence. You thought I'd break? I used the cracks. You thought I'd beg? I bit down and smiled. You sent priests, hackers, hypnotists. All of them walked in with answers. All of them left with questions, tattooed behind their eyes. So keep your labels, keep your files, keep whispering my name like it's forbidden, because every time you say it, you remind the world that one like me exists. And that legend is the part that haunts you the most.